nitrate. I'll repeat it before I move to the new topics of today. If I take X as magnesium and Y as zinc and X, it was XYZ. So if X is magnesium, Y is taken as zinc and Z is taken as copper. So magnesium will not have any reaction with magnesium nitrate, but definitely magnesium will displace aqueous zinc nitrate, will displace zinc from aqueous zinc nitrate and form magnesium nitrate, and zinc will come out. And magnesium will also react with copper 2 nitrate and displace it, forming magnesium nitrate, and copper will come out as pink solid. Likewise, you should have written, when zinc reacts with magnesium nitrate, no reaction. Zinc reacts with zinc nitrate, no reaction. When zinc reacts with aqueous copper 2 nitrate, it displaces copper, being more reactive, and forms zinc nitrate, and copper comes out. Likewise, you should have written, copper when reacts with magnesium nitrate, no reaction. Copper when reacts with zinc nitrate, no reaction, because they both metals are more reactive than copper and copper can't displace them. But copper plus copper 2 nitrate, no reaction. This was the answer of question number 2, second part. I hope you have understood. Now I'm unmuting you. You can ask me any question you have not understood vis-a-vis to homework. Raise your hand, please, if you have not understood now. Yes, raise your hand. I give you time. Yes. Yes, Muhammad Hamza Faisal. Hamza Faisal, you have a question, please? If you have a question, ask me. No? Yes, please. Raise your hand if you have a question over the homework. You misunderstood nitrate as solid, and all of you wrote decomposition of nitrates. Yes, anyone has a question? Yes, please raise your hand. Bilal Ahmed Khan, yes. Do you have a question, please?
जी miss in the
Yes, ऊंचा
homework we
बोलिए
were
बेटा.
given the
जी जी.
salt nitrates and not the metals. We
They are
were
of the
only
metals. Nitrates are salt of metals. Remember, I told you the family carbonates, nitrates, these are the salts of metal, and I asked you that these metals reacts with their salts, with their nitrates. Zinc nitrate, copper 2 nitrate, magnesium nitrate, or you can say XYZ nitrates. Clear?
yes miss.
Okay, my dear. Muhammad Shaban, do you have a question, please?
यस मिस आपने हमारे इतनी सारी असाइनमेंट्स दी, लेकिन मिस आपने सिर्फ हमारी पहली चेक की है, बाकी आपने चेक ही नहीं की हमारी.
क्या मतलब? मैंने आपके जिनके काम टाइम पे थे सबके चेक किए मैंने.
मिस मैंने आपको 3 टाइम पे दी थी, लेकिन आपने तीनों ने चेक किए मेरे.
अच्छा, आप देर से दी होंगी ना, तो मैं अब देखूंगी. आई विल गो थ्रू देम अगेन.
ओके मिस,
ओके.
थैंक यू.
हाँ जी, टाइम पे दिया करें. Any other question, please, over the homework? Okay. Now, my dear students, I am muting you and informing you that now the points to remember will also come on the screen, so you remain focused when I'm explaining. So the first slide of points to remember will come on the screen, and the topics today I'm going to explain are: number 1, extraction of iron from its ore, and number 2, uses of types of steel and uses of those steel. Now I'll bring the points also on the screen. I hope you all can view fully. My dear, we were discussing extraction of metals from their compounds. And we have discussed the extraction of aluminium from its compound aluminium oxide or alumina, and you know all the steps. You know all the steps. Now we are coming to, I'm setting the screen for getting those points on the screen. Now we are coming to middle order metals. How can we extract them from their compounds present in ores? Iron is one of them. Iron is a very important metal, and it is, after aluminum, it is the second most abundant. You can't find it in free state or elemental form in the crust, so it is present in the form of compounds, and these compounds are impure. These compounds are impure and called ores, and from them we extract the metal. There are many ores of iron. One of it is hematite, which contain iron as iron 3 oxide. On the screen, you can see 3. I've written it with Roman way, but you have to write it the other way, the other one with 2 slash on the top and below. Iron 3 oxide. Iron 3 oxide is an ore of iron. Iron 3 oxide is present in the ore hematite. It's present in the ore hematite. And hematite, spelling error is there, Heamatite. So please correct it. Contain the compound iron 3 oxide. There are other ores of iron as well, magnetite and siderite. Likewise, we can extract the middle order metals from zinc to lead by the method which we are going to use for the extraction of iron from iron 3 oxide. Okay. The method we are going to use most suitable is chemical reduction. I'll be discussing the steps involved in the extraction of iron from its ore, which contain iron 3 oxide. Now, question comes in the mind of a student: how come, what are the other impurities present in this ore other than iron 3 oxide, the main compound? The other impurities are the impurities of sulfur, calcium carbonate, silica, that is sand, SiO2, and so on. In the chemical extraction method, which I discussed last time, chemical reduction, we do not need to purify the ore as we did in case of electrolytic reduction for aluminum. Because you know that electrolysis is a very sensitive method. If the impurities are also in the electrolytic cell, they will also get electrolyzed. So my dear students, the first step involved in the extraction of iron is, when you open up your textbook, you will see the industrial design of a furnace which is called blast furnace, BLASTFURNACE. Why is it called blast furnace? Because it is heated by the blast of hot air. You know, the blast of air conditioner must be on you right now, as it is on me. So thank God it's cold air. We are lucky. We are not teaching and studying in a furnace. We are sitting in air-conditioned room. How affluent. Be thankful to your parents and to finally to your, number one, to your Allah Almighty. Thank you. So my dear students, all the raw materials required in the extraction of iron are added from the top in the blast furnace, and they are, you all can see, coke, which is a purer form of carbon, limestone, which is calcium carbonate, and hot air, and these are, along with the ore, are heated in the blast furnace. All these raw materials are added from the top of the furnace, and the hot air enters the furnace from the bottom through certain openings, industrial design. You can see it in your textbooks. Enters the furnace. The furnace is quite tall, about 30 meters in height. And as you can see from points to remember in front of you, it's provided with hot air from the bottom through small pipes. The temperature of the furnace may vary from 2000 Celsius to 200 degrees Celsius. That is, at the bottom it will be higher because the hot air enters from there. And as the hot air moves upward, its temperature decreases from 2000 to 200 Celsius. Now, young friends, heat is very important, to carry various reactions. The top reaction is thermal decomposition. Then it facilitates certain elements to react with each other, which at room temperature will not. So the very first reaction, I've given the word equations. You can translate them in the homework into formula. So you can the first reaction is computer, I think. Don't worry. The first reaction is carbon, which is present as in the purer form called coke, reacts with carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide given out is an exothermic reaction, and the carbon dioxide now travel along with the hot air upwards. And the temperature further rises because of the exothermic reaction of carbon reacting with the oxygen of the hot air. Carbon is the purer form of coke. Now this carbon dioxide, when it moves up in the blast furnace, you know that hot air, hot gases are lighter than cooler air or cooler gases. So they travel upward. This carbon dioxide reacts further with more carbon, that is coke, and get reduced to carbon monoxide. When carbon dioxide reacts with more coke or carbon, it will give us what? Carbon monoxide. Now, my dear students, you are smart and can understand that there are two reducing agents in the blast furnace now. We added only one, that is carbon. You know what's a reducing agent? A reducing agent is a chemical which reduces other and itself get oxidized. Now we have two reducing agents in the furnace. One is your carbon, and the other is your carbon monoxide. Is it clear? Because when carbon monoxide reduces other, it itself gets oxidized to carbon dioxide. Now, young friends, we have two reducing agents, and these two reducing agents are going to attack iron 3 oxide, Fe2O3, in the ore, one by one, simultaneously, but we'll talk one by one. And the reactions are, as you can see on the screen, iron 3 oxide reacts with carbon monoxide and get reduced to iron and carbon dioxide. Very simple. You can translate it into formula equation and balance it. Likewise, the second reducing agent, carbon, also attacks iron 3 oxide and changes it to iron, and itself get oxidized to carbon monoxide. More reducing agent is produced. So my dear student, these are the two main reactions, very important reactions of blast furnace. How the oxide of iron is converted into molten liquid iron. I hope you have understood. When I unmute you, you can ask me if you have any question in your mind. Now, after this, we added limestone in the furnace, which is calcium carbonate. What was its use? You have studied the effect of heat on dry carbonates, not aqueous, the way you did in your homework, the mistake. So the limestone calcium carbonate is in dry state. on excess heating in the blast furnace will convert into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. A student asked, Miss, what is the use of this? You'll come to know. Since in the ore, the most abundant impurity is silica, that is silicon dioxide, I know some students are asking me questions. I'll answer it once I complete this extraction. Don't worry. Your teacher will give you enough time to ask questions. Keep them with you. Let me go in a momentum. So my dear students, this calcium oxide formed, which is called quicklime also, CaO, would react with the silica, the sand, SiO2, will react with the silica and will remove sand from molten iron now, and very important impurity as calcium silicate, which will behave like solid, will solidify and will float over molten iron. Will float over molten iron and can be tapped off from the bottom of the furnace, and iron can be tapped off, molten iron can be tapped off from the other, from the bottom of the furnace separately. I'll stop over here till 5 points we have discussed. 6th I'll discuss later, and I will wait for the azan is going on. So I'll wait for 2 minutes and then I'll unmute you and you all can ask me questions one by one. Okay? You can gather your questions, what you have understood about blast furnace. And now listen carefully. Now, my dear students, you can all visualize the blast furnace industrially, 30 meters tall and carrying raw material of hematite and your limestone and your coke, and the hot air is entering from the bottom. And you have seen that what the whole hematite undergoes chemically. We have discussed that. Obviously, when the hot air is there, we don't want to make the furnace airtight. There'll be some exit also. So the exhaust gases, which are pollutant gases, which are not required, they leave the blast furnace from the top through pipes. And these are the common one are carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide if remains unreacted, and most important is nitrogen gas, because in the air there's a 78% nitrogen gas which is not used in the blast furnace. So these are the exhaust gases which are going out of the blast furnace from the top. So from the top we allowed the raw material to enter in the blast furnace, and from the top of the blast furnace these exhaust gases are allowed to exit. Such questions come in the exam. And from the bottom of the blast furnace, hot air is allowed to enter in it, and slag, which is calcium silicate formed by the reaction of calcium oxide and silicon dioxide, is separated or is tapped off separately, and the molten iron, which is tapped off separately from the slag. Now we have got the molten iron, but still the journey is not completed. Remember, my dear students, chemistry is the subject of connectivity. It is very near to logic as well as to intelligence, as well as to deducing abilities and your learning abilities. So please keep them sharp. No sharpener can sharpen it until you are interested in it. Now the liquid iron which is obtained is not pure. It is called pig iron. God forbid, I don't mean the animal, but it's called pig iron. Why? Because it's impure, and the major impurity present in it is carbon, which may be the pure, the coke which you have added, some of it, or maybe present already in the ore. So this pig iron, which contain about 5% of carbon, is not worth using because it's very brittle and hard. So it has to be converted into more malleable and very tough iron called wrought iron, which contain about 0.1% carbon. So this wrought iron is very tough and malleable and can be used to make alloys, and they will be the alloys will be more malleable, that is can change into any shape and will be more tough, will not break away quickly. So how is this pig iron converted into wrought iron? It is converted into wrought iron. It is converted into wrought iron by putting pig iron into an oxygen furnace. The oxygen furnace take away all the carbon from the pig iron and make it pure, and then required amount of carbon is added into it to get different alloys of iron with carbon called different types of steel. So my dear student, remember, brittle, when a substance is brittle, it's hard and less malleable. And when a substance is soft, it is tough and more malleable. So we make a substance malleable by adding required amount of another element into it, not too much. I hope you have understood this 6 and 7 points, that what type of iron you get from blast furnace and how is it converted in from pig iron to wrought iron. It has to do with the percentage amount of carbon in it. Now, as I told you earlier, when you extract a metal from its compound, you have some reason, some use for it. The main use of iron is in the form of steel, which is an alloy of iron. About 0.1% to 5% carbon it contains. 0.1% to 0.5% carbon. Steel is an alloy of iron, which is a mixture of carbon and iron, but limited amount of carbon in it, not the amount present in pig iron, 5%. It is between 0.1% to 0.5%. We will discuss two types of steel. But before that, I'm going to unmute you all so you can ask any question you want to. And raise your hands, please. Do ask me. You have the points in front of you also. And ask me if you have any question. Yes, Abdullah Iqbal, loud and clear. You can ask question, please, Abdullah Iqbal. Yes, any other student? Abdullah Iqbal, you can ask me if you're raising your hand. Please raise your hand if you want to ask. If you want to ask any question that how pig iron is converted into wrought iron and why. Yes, Bilal Ahmed Khan.
Miss, can you explain the eighth point?
Can I explain you the 8th point?
Yes,
The main
miss.
use of iron is in the form of steel, which is an alloy
Yes, miss.
of iron, about 0.1 to 0.5% carbon. I'm going to discuss two types of steel, mild steel and medium steel. Remember that steel is an alloy, which is an alloy of carbon. The main element is iron and carbon. And steel may contain 0.1 to 0.5% carbon. On the basis of that, we are going to divide steel into two types, mild and hard steel. In between comes medium, but mainly it's divided into mild steel and hard steel. So, Beta, what do you want me to explain about point 8? I'm going to explain in 9 and 10 the uses of these steel. Can you put your question more clear?
No, miss, I just wanted to ask about the 0.1 and 0.5%.
Okay, that I'm going to discuss. Remember one thing, but the lesser the amount of carbon in iron, the softer it will be. And we don't want very soft iron. that it breaks away. I mean, you can't mold it. So we add little carbon into it. The lesser we put carbon, the milder steel will it be. The more we put carbon, the harder or medium steel it would be. But the range should not exceed from 0.1 to 0.5%. Otherwise, if we add more carbon, it will become very hard and brittle and ultimately change into pig iron, which contains 5% carbon. So this is the relationship you have to keep in your mind, my dear Bilal, that lesser the carbon, milder, malleable the steel will be. But it should not exceed 0.5%. And when I discuss point 9 and 10, you will understand it better.
Okay, miss.
Any other question, please? Raise your hand. Okay. Okay, have you seen screen sharing also? Are you, all these points are in front of you? Anyone can answer, such as Alian, Sajid? Okay, good. Do you feel more comfortable with these points in front? Anyone can answer, such as, can Sayyid Hussain Asad, Umar Shahid can answer? Umar Hassan, can you answer? 11B, Umar Hassan. Is screen sharing suitable?
Yes, ma'am, it's very suitable.
Suitable. Thank you. It's easy. It becomes easier for you to understand the lecture. Yes. Thank you. So, young friends, I'm muting you all and going to explain you point 9 and 10. Now, all of you, including my dear Bilal Ahmed Khan, has understood the difference between iron and steel. Iron is pure element, steel is an alloy of carbon and iron. The main element, the base element of steel is iron. Only little amount of carbon is added into it. Less than between 0.1% carbon to 0.5%. If on the basis of this, on the basis of the amount of carbon in steel, the percentage of carbon in steel, steel is divided. This is a very pet question of examiners. I'll briefly explain two types of steel and their uses. So my point 9 and 10 will briefly explain both of that. Steel is divided into two types, mild steel and medium and hard steels. They are taken together. Obviously, not all of you are smart who are attending my class and are very regular in attending, because I am in my second last lecture of metals, and on Friday coming, we'll end up with metal section 9. So those who have attended, they know the use of it. So my dear students, all of you can answer medium and hard steel will contain higher percentage of carbon compared to mild steel. And I have given you, you can see it. Mild steel is soft and malleable and contains 0.1% to 0.25% of carbon. And it's used in making car bodies, nails, steel pipes, screws, etc. Is it clear? You're asked to give the exact percentage. So please learn it and the use. Whereas medium and hard steel, which contains 0.25% to 0.6% or 5% or 0.6% carbon, which is exact, and the harder steel, which is harder than medium, contains 0.6 to 1.5% of carbon. That is, it should be from 0.2 to 0.5, but it contains little harder, little more, such as 1.5%. It goes up to 1.5%, not 5% as in pig iron. And these medium and harder steels are used in making tools. There's a spelling mistake, please. I'm sorry. Tools, not TODS. Okay, correct it. Tools. Used in making tools, TOOLS. Like hammers, you know, you need a harder steel in it. And most alloy steels, as they're harder and less malleable. For drilling mountains, we need harder steel, tools. So I hope you have understood the use of mild, and there are many other alloys of iron. which such as stainless steel, which you can study the composition of stainless steel in your textbooks, and that's it. So these were the important uses of iron, and that is making of steel, mild, hard, or moderate, medium in hardness. Now I'll unmute you. You have gone through the 10 points, and these will also come in your GCR, so you can make notes out of them. You can copy. I hope you're taking these points to remember very seriously and copying them, or you are getting a hard copy out of your computer by putting a printer. And these, I think you'll end up with 60 points to remember, 60, by Friday. And they will be, I'm assuring you with my experience, if not, if you don't accept my intelligence, I have little like you all have, that these 60 points will help you answer future papers, inshallah, school papers, and your past papers very discreetly, and help you to achieve about 90% or more marks. Rest is yours, intelligentsia. You can then read textbooks to enhance them. But if you have any point, but don't please waste them. They are very important. It's not that I have copied from the book only. It's just I have thought, I have gone through the past papers for so many years and focus only on those areas with greater emphasis, which are part of your examination papers. Now, young friends, I'm unmuting you. You can ask any question you want to, raise your hand vis-a-vis to these 10 points. Anything you want to ask. Feel free, easy, comfortable. Raise your hand to ask anything which you have not understood. I think there are about 38 students, 32 students only. Well, I fail to understand why the rest are absent. I hope you have put your attendance in GCR. Abdullah Iqbal, yes, you have a question, please. Yes, please. Yes, Abdullah. I'm listening.
Miss, the more the carbon content, the more the metal will be brittle.
Yes.
Okay.
The more the carbon content in iron, the more the alloy steel will become brittle. When it will become brittle, it will not be tough. It will break away quickly. I've given in my point number 7 that brittle makes a substance hard and less malleable, and softness makes a substance tough and more malleable. So more the carbon, the more brittle will be the steel, more hard will be the steel, and less malleable will it be. Is it clear, Iqbal? Have you understood? Is it clear? Raise your hand, please, if you have any other question. Abdullah Iqbal has asked me. Aman Beg, yes, you have a question, please.
Miss, what is the color
Aman,
difference between
जनाब,
Miss, what is the color difference between
पूछा बोलें बेटा, पूछा बोलेंगे तो समझ आएगी.
Miss, what is the color difference between the two with more carbon and less carbon?
Okay, you are sir. I should appreciate your sense of perfectness. But a steel usually, the carbon does not affect much of its color. The percentage is so less, and the color of iron, pure iron, is grayish blackish. You know, the pure iron is gray, silver. All metals have this color. So presence of carbon will not make it black or like that, because very less amount. I mean, just look at in your house, many things are made up of steel. Stainless steel make it very glittery because chromium is added into it. Your stainless steel spoons, but steel things such as the handles of the door, or you know, the hammer. So the coloring agent can be added, but carbon is not contributing too much of color in it as black. Carbon is black, you know. So generally, this is a question which may vary. If you open up different types of steels are there, sometimes we add different colors into it to give some color to the alloy. But generally the color is the same, grayish black. Okay, this is the steel color. Is the when we say steel color, oh, he's wearing a steel color pant, it means grayish. Remember this? We also use it in our everyday life. Oh, Miss Siddiqui is wearing a steel color suit today. By steel color means grayish. Is it clear? Clear, Aman? Raise your hand, please. Have you understood? Aman Beg, you have understood? At least
Yes,
respond.
miss.
Okay, thank you. Please respond quickly. Any other question, please raise your hand. Okay. Now I'm going to keep you unmute so that when you raise your hand, I will be answering you simultaneously and not hold you for some minutes. Because now what, in 10 minutes, I'm going to discuss something very important. 10 or 15 minutes which are left. So I'll keep you unmute. If you have to ask a question, raise your hand. I'll answer you as soon as possible. Okay? Okay? So you all are unmute. My dear students, you must have, I've given you some questions in the homework to focus you to the theory paper, paper 2 of the syllabus. Those questions were given, specially given, and today also when you'll get, go to your GCR, you'll find these points there as well as homework questions. They are all very, very frequently asked questions in the theory paper. My objective was that you people get used to different types of questions which appear in a section. In section of metals, you must have seen in the theory paper, the question can be very straightforward. The question may be asking your deducing abilities. You have answered them. And especially the question related to your laboratory experience or your applications. As last homework which you did, I gave you especially question of 7 marks. By mistake, it was printed 6, but it was of 7 marks. And most of you were only able to do 50% of it, or rather 40%. You could write how X, Y, Z can be differentiated in their reactivity on the basis of reaction with dilute HCl. But none of you were able to give correct answer with nitrate. I hope you have understood that. So my requirement today is that when you get some time before it's Friday, when we come to our last lecture on metals, I want you all also to go through the past papers and search certain questions which are especially designed for laboratory application. You can find it in your ATP paper also, questions on metals, as well in your MCQs. At least 2 to 3 MCQs are all based on metals every year. Minimum 2 to 3 from section 9. Theory questions, you may get, say, 20 marks questions on metals. In ATP, you may get questions, the one which I gave you, which asks you to visualize a laboratory in your mind. So my advice to all my good students, and all of you who are taking the class seriously are very good, we'll go through the past paper, theory paper, ATP paper, MCQs, and search for questions related to metals, because now we are left with very few important topics: rusting of iron, prevention of iron, which I'll be discussing on Friday, inshallah, with my notes and also some homework. And next Monday, inshallah, we'll start the new section. So my dear friends, if you have any question anywhere, those who have not attended can ask me right now vis-a-vis to metals. Let's see, I may be able to answer you spontaneously related to your syllabus. If you have any question on metals, please answer me. Otherwise, I'll give you a short classwork on chemical calculations. If you have any question, please raise your hand. Please, I'm expecting one of you may raise your hand and ask me any question which you have not understood, especially those students who've attended the class regularly. Yes. No? All of you have understood. Can anyone answer this question? How does the structure of pure metal differ from the structure of an alloy? Who would answer it? Please raise your hand. Yes, Bilal, you want to answer?
Yes, miss. The
Yes, please
metal.
very clearly answer to the class.
Okay, miss. The pure metal only has layers of same sizes of atoms, whereas the alloy has different atom sizes. So
Very
when
good.
they overlap each other, the alloy becomes more stronger.
Oh, very good. I would put it in more sophisticated way. In a pure metal, the atomic radius or radii of the atoms are same. In an alloy, the atoms have different radii because it's a mixture of different elements. Very good. My second question is, how does the structure of an alloy monitor its physical properties compared to the physical properties of a pure metal? What are the difference in the physical properties of a pure metal and of an alloy? Since you know the structure, and structure predicts the physical properties, you know that too. Who would answer? Please raise your hand. Yes. How does the physical properties, among them come melting, boiling point, malleability, ductility, how does the physical properties of an alloy differ from a pure metal? That is, how does the physical property of pure iron differ from steel? In other words, as an example, raise your hand, please, if you have a question. If you can answer, sorry. Yes, Afnan, would you like to answer? Yes, please.
Yes, miss. Miss, because the atomic radius are not the same, the metal will not be as malleable as the pure metal, and it will also not be as ductile as the pure metal, and hence the melting and boiling points will also decrease.
Very good. He's now I'm repeating your answer for the rest of the class. You said that since in metal the atomic radii of all the atoms are same, so the layers of atoms can slip over each other more easily. So pure metals are more malleable and ductile than the alloy because of different atomic radii. There'll be a hindrance in the slipping of the layers over each other or rolling of the atoms over each other, as you say. And likewise, you talked of the melting and boiling point will differ of a pure metal from that an alloy. This is what you have said, right? Good. Now, young friends, I give you a question of chemical calculations and will mute you and give you 2 minutes to work over it. So please, you can take the question of chemical calculations. I hope you are carrying a pencil or the paper in front of you. You may be asked to do some working. I'll give you an equation which is Ca calcium plus 2H2O, that is water. When they react, they give calcium hydroxide CaOH bracket 2 plus H2. So I'm giving you the balance equation. Repeating, Ca plus 2H2O arrow CaOH bracket 2 plus H2. Now this is the information. My question is, what is the total mass of the solution? I hope you understand the product is coming out as a solution. SOLUTION. What's the total mass of the solution that remains when 40 grams of 40 gram of calcium reacts with 100 gram of water? It's a question of stoichiometry. And I have given you the equation. I'm repeating it. Ca plus 2H2O arrow calcium hydroxide plus H2. Now the state symbols are calcium solid, H2O liquid, calcium hydroxide aqueous, that is the solution, and hydrogen is a gas. They're asking you what would be the total mass of the solution that remains when 40 grams of calcium reacts with 100 gram of water. Give me the answer. What will be the answer to it? I give you 2 minutes. I'm giving you time. Yes, Mustafa? Who is going to answer? Okay, now I'll give you the explanation. You know that according to the equation, 40 grams of calcium reacts completely with 2 times 18, that is 36 grams of water. But we are provided with, in the question, 40 grams of calcium, which is a limiting reactant, and 100 grams of water. It means out of 100 grams, 40 grams are used in making calcium hydroxide. So the leftover are 100 minus 36 is 64 grams. Now you add this 64 gram into the mass of calcium hydroxide. The molar mass of calcium hydroxide is 40 plus 36, 2 times 16 is 32, sorry. 2 times 16 is 32 plus 2 times 1 is 2. So the total mass of calcium hydroxide is 40 plus 32, 72 plus 2, 74. Now 74 plus 64 is 138 grams. The answer is 138 grams. I'll repeat the explanation so that you don't remain unquenched. If you have understood the question, it's a question of limiting and excess stoichiometry. In the equation, 40 grams of calcium reacts completely with 2 times 18, 32 grams of water. In the given question, we are given 40 grams of calcium but 100 grams of water. It means out of 100 gram, only 32 grams will be used. 64 will be left in the solution. And the solution contained water, 64 grams, and calcium hydroxide, which is the molar mass of calcium, which happens to be 40 plus 32 plus 2, that is 74. When you add 74 and 64, you get 138. Anyone has a question over it before I say goodbye? Please do a lot of chemical calculations with the help of your past papers and topical books. Okay, thank you. Have a good day and visit your GCR after this to get the homework and the same points to remember. Have a nice day. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.